How do you even begin the telling of an adventure that changed your life? I guess with the first steps. And in March of 2023, I took my first steps on the Appalachian Trail, a 2,198.4-mile footpath from Georgia to Maine. There are many stories of people's adventures and treks down this trail, but we all struggle with different things and we all find joy in different ways. And this is my story. About to go climb Springer and officially start the AT. It is cold as shit this morning, but the sun is out. Made it to Springer! I was quickly given the trail name Treats because I had brought in a treat to celebrate the summit of Springer, and also because I followed a treats mantra where I believed if it was a good day, you deserved a treat to make it great. If it was a bad day, you deserved a treat to make it better. And if it was a mediocre day, you deserved a treat to make it good. And so I was dubbed the trail name Treats. It's good we're getting picked up because I need to do some better seam sealing on this part of my tent. Although I started out the trail alone, I quickly made friends with my fellow hikers and was part of a trail family. These sweatshirts gave us life when we found these loaner clothes. First climb of the morning out of Gerard's Gap, and the trees are frozen. Look how beautiful this view is. Love it. On day 5 of the trail, we summited Blood Mountain, and on our way up, I followed a man wearing Crocs in the snow, thinking, what a doofus. I obviously didn't know it at the time, but this was the man that I would end up hiking over 2,000 miles of the trail with. Trail magic this morning. Before we knew it, we were experiencing a lot of thru hiker first. We were getting trail magic, our first resupply, our first trail town of Hiawassee, Georgia, and it was as we were leaving Hiawassee, Georgia, that John, or AKA as he would become to be known, Barbie, joined the trail family of the morning slow-mos of me, Schmitty, and Ozark. This is what happens when hikers go to a restaurant. Yo. It was still early in our adventure, but I was loving every second. In less than half a mile, we're gonna cross into North Carolina. And I'm so excited, because I've walked home. First place in North Carolina. Only 13 more states to go. Reaching that first state line was a monumentous moment for all of us. There's so many who start who don't reach this point, and so we felt incredibly grateful that now we had 13 states to go. And for me, it was even extra exciting to walk across that state line into North Carolina because I had walked home. Although we were one state down, we were still getting our trail legs, and North Carolina was definitely not taking it easy on us with some pretty tough climbs in the beginning, but it also rewarded us with some spectacular views. And then before we could even catch our breath, we were at the 100-mile mark. We made it 100 miles! Been a good morning so far. Our first big mile marker on the trail, and honestly it felt surreal to have walked 100 miles. I honestly almost couldn't believe it, except for my legs were starting to get stronger and faster. And you know, even a bad day out here is still better than going into the office on a Monday morning, so staying positive. I absolutely loved being on the trail, but a few weeks in, I was also starting to come to terms with the fact that not every day was wonderful, and although there were a lot of smiles and happy moments, there were also a lot of struggles and tough days that I had to push to get through. But getting baptized in the Nantahala River at the Nantahala Outdoor Center by Trail Jesus was definitely a highlight of my trail adventure, even if the water was frigidly cold.
Who's coming next? We gotta have one. Barbie, you're next.
I knew that starting the trail in the bubble would be tough and uncomfortable for an introvert like myself, but I also knew that if I let it, it would be one of the most wonderful parts of my trail experience. As an introvert, it feels weird to say this, but one of my whys for hiking the Appalachian Trail is that I had hoped that it would give me back my faith in humanity. And I can say that by week 3, the people out here had given me back that faith.
Crossing the dam! Damn! Honestly, we're dancing across the dam and it's gonna take us a fucking 3 hours to get across it, but you know. Damn! Damn! Look at this dam!
With my trail family by my side, my permit in hand, and some miles under my belt, we were ready to tackle Great Smoky Mountains National Park and all of its glorious beauty.
You're like laughing so hard you can't even do it.
But not without some silliness and giggles, of course. And honestly, that's how I made it through the tough days at the beginning, is my trail family always kept me laughing. Even though I've lived in North Carolina my entire life, I had never been to Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I think a part of me wanted to save seeing this park for when I was hiking through it on the trail.
The views are beautiful, but the wind is brutal.
I can without a doubt say that waiting was worth it, because there was something so special about getting to experience this magical and beautiful park for the first time while completing my thru hike of the Appalachian Trail. And even though the views weren't always the best, like when we summited Clingman's Dome for sunrise, which is now known as Kawohe, even when the views weren't the best, it was still such an amazing feeling to be out there experiencing this.
A bunch of frigid dumbasses got up at 4 a.m.
So worth the view!
So worth it.
And before I or my feet realized it, we had walked 200 freaking miles of the Appalachian Trail. It was quickly starting to feel like we had been out here forever and that this was home. Resupplies were getting easier and setting up my tent was getting faster and my feet were starting to ache less.
Trail magic is truly magic. This gives me so much faith in humanity. Thank you to all the people that do this.
Days on trail were wonderful, and the views were even more spectacular than I could have ever imagined. But the fun had to come to a pause at some point, and towards the end of our trek through the Smoky Mountains, I came down with a sinus infection. Lucky for me, I'm used to sinus infections, and I know how to deal with them, but having to overcome being sick while being out on the trail and experiencing one of our coldest, wettest days was a new challenge for me.
Where did you find that?
Bruv, oh my god, the silk liner. Please, this is so funny. Bobby, give us a little twirl. Oh, yeah!
If you lose your one and only, there's always room here for the lonely. Watching broken dreams dancing in outer rings of a neon moon.
By the time we made it to Hot Springs, North Carolina, my sinus infection had cleared up and we had officially been out on trail for a month. We celebrated with even more new friends and with some Trail Town 0 days.
It's been a good few days out on the AT. And still loving absolutely every second of it.
Battling an illness on trail is not something I would wish upon anyone. There's a different kind of vulnerability when you're sick and out in the woods. But despite the toughness of it, it had made me stronger, and I knew that I could tackle a lot more than I thought that I could. Not to mention that slowing down a little bit allowed for us to meet some new friends along the trail. So, as they always say, the trail provides. Maybe it was just telling me to slow down a little bit. And I think besides slowing down, the trail was also trying to tell me to appreciate the things that were right in front of me, or more specifically, the man that was usually hiking right in front of me, and that was Barbie. And it was in Hot Springs where we officially got together and my tent just started to become weight in my pack.
Some good, interesting, rough days. but there's still nowhere I'd rather be. So here's to another day on the trail.
The thing that I was learning really quickly about the trail is that it continuously throws you challenges to overcome just to see how tough you are. And after we had made it into Tennessee, almost to Irwin, we were thrown yet another curveball when most of our trail family got sick with norovirus, and we ended up having to swap weights and slow down to about 8 or less miles a day again. And after finally getting to a point on trail where we were upping our mileage and our trail legs were finally feeling really good, this was kind of a disappointment. But just like my sinus infection had taught me to be stronger, going through this with my trail family, even though I didn't get norovirus, helped me in other ways to realize what I really wanted out of my hike. And whether that meant slowing down with friends who were sick or speeding up to meet other friends for day hikes, I was realizing just how important my relationships on trail were to me. But in the same vein, I was also realizing how important my relationship with myself was, and how I knew that I needed to make this hike for me and not about anyone else or their expectations for their hike. So I reminded myself once again that I had to hike my own hike.
I think it's going to be really emotional for me because Roan is kind of where all of this dream kind of came together. So it's going to be emotional to hit 19 East for me and all the markers along the way to 19 East from here.
And part of hiking my own hike was sometimes hiking away from my trail family so that I could meet up with friends to hike up some of my favorite sections. I hadn't done many miles of the AT before setting out on this trek, but the part that I had done was the section from Carver's Gap to 19 East, a section that I fell in love with long ago, and that actually is one of the places that inspired me to do my thru hike. So I had planned on meeting a friend to hike this section once again, because it was important to both of us, and it was really special for me to share that adventure with her and to feel the support of my friends back home. Having hiked the Roan Highlands quite a few times, I knew that the weather up here could be unpredictable, but I was happy to see that on the day that we were hiking through, we had absolutely beautiful weather. Not only because it's always amazing to enjoy these views on a good weather day, but also because it was Barbie's first experience seeing this place, and I knew our friends who were a day or two behind would hopefully also get the same beautiful weather to get to see this absolutely stunning place for the first time as they hiked through. The Roan Highlands are part of what inspired me to thru hike the Appalachian Trail, but the reason that they are so monumental to me to reach this point was that reaching 19 East was really like walking home, even more so than crossing the North Carolina state line. Reaching 19 East meant that I had made it. It was almost as good as reaching Katahdin. At least in the moment, and then I was ready to keep on going and head towards Maine. Besides the fact that reaching the Roan Highlands was a personal milestone for me, the Roan Highlands also mark the point where you leave North Carolina on the trail for the last time. We had been weaving and bopping in and out of North Carolina and Tennessee for the last few weeks, but this marked being officially in Tennessee, and that meant we had completed another states and there were only 12 more to go. I might be a little bit biased, but these North Carolina and Tennessee mountains were some of my favorites on trail. Besides the fact that they were home, there was just something so majestic and magical about them and all of the beauty that they showed us every day.
There you go. Beautiful. Look at them go. Generating heat, burning toxins out of your systems, getting your...
my underarms!
Well, there's no stopping that at this rate.
That did help a little bit.
Good.
And don't worry, even amidst all the beauty and the white blazes, we were still always laughing and joking. Though our trail family had changed a little bit for the next few weeks, as some trail family drama ensued. I won't go into detail, but just say as a reminder that it's important to know yourself, and for every single hiker out there to hike your own hike. Don't be out there to hike for anyone else or to let anyone else make your decisions. And I promise you that as long as you're out there hiking for yourself, no matter whether the day is good or bad, that you will still feel good about yourself. And as we made our way into Virginia, I was realizing that I was hiking my own hike, and as someone who sometimes struggles to self-advocate for themselves, not really with self-confidence, but with self-advocation, I was really glad that I kept standing my ground and that I was going to hike my own hike no matter what.
Made it to Damascus! Ah! I'm so excited.
That's gonna be a new sound, right?
I hike with a child.
Reaching Damascus, Virginia, aka Trailtown, USA, and where the Trail Days Festival is held every year, was another monumental moment for me. I had been visiting Damascus, Virginia since I was a kid and have countless times biked down the iconic Virginia Creeper Trail, so reaching this point was another moment of like walking to a different piece of home for me. And again, walking there on my own 2 feet from Georgia just made it all the more special. And after leaving Damascus, we headed into one of the most iconic spots on trail, the Grayson Highlands. And besides being excited over the ponies, we also reached 500 miles.
500 miles and I would walk 500 more.
And with a little dance party and a lot of excitement, we had reached the 500-mile marker. Our legs had walked 500 miles. We were all completely elated to have made it to this spot where so many others have not. And I don't really know how to describe it, but it's really hard to comprehend in your brain that you've walked that many miles on your feet. Especially as you get further and further on the trail, it just becomes so natural to wake up every morning and walk miles that the mile markers, even though they're so monumental, they are hard to comprehend that you've done such a big feat. Remember how I said I loved Damascus? Well, that meant we definitely couldn't miss the iconic Trail Days Festival that is basically just a hiker trash festival where we got to celebrate with friends this iconic trail that we're walking on. And then we were back on trail trekking through the 500 miles of Virginia, and our trail family was getting smaller. Ozark and Bearbag had decided that they wanted to hike some smaller miles, and Smokin' Burrito was about to have to speed up. And so in the middle of Virginia, it was just Barbie and I hiking together. And let me tell you that when you share a one-person tent with somebody, you definitely learn whether or not you like spending time with them. So I guess you could say that I liked spending time with Barbie because we were still sharing that tent. So we were just hiking with the 2 of us, and we didn't really have a set trail family anymore. We were never alone. Well, I guess some nights we did get campsites to ourselves, which was pretty cool, but we were never really alone. We were constantly running in to friends that we had made or making new friends at the shelters. While I haven't hiked any other long trails, I really feel like that's part of what makes the AT so special is not only the people that you meet, but that there are all these spots to meet people along the way. Not only can you meet people in towns or just on the trail in general, but because the shelters provide kind of a congregation spot, you get to meet all these fantastic and different and sometimes the same wonderful people again and again. And when we weren't with our hiker friends, we got to spend time on our own. And I think there's something really beautiful about being on the trail and getting to really spend time with yourself and your thoughts. I mean, it can be a little bit scary to be alone with your thoughts out here, but at the same point, I really feel like it teaches you a lot about yourself. Speaking of learning about yourself, it was on some of the rainiest of days where I felt like I learned the most and what I could handle and what I could deal with. But my saving grace was always the adorable red Fs that we would see after a rainstorm.
The view here at Taylor Mountain is, of Taylor Mountain is absolutely spectacular, as you can see. Just couldn't have a more perfect day to see this mountain. Beautiful.
Besides the mental challenge of the rain, it was after trail days when we realized that Barbie was battling a bout of giardia. And although he was mostly fine, we did have a challenging few days where he really wasn't feeling great, and we once again had to kind of adjust our mileage to fit our new needs.
Do you spot the thing that is not supposed to be in the woods? Well, it is supposed to be in the woods, but it's not a root. Can you spot it? There's a danger noodle. They scare the shit out of me.
800 miles into trail, and I was still learning and realizing every day that there was no day on trail that was easy. Every day, every week presented new challenges, whether it was sinus infections, giardia, issues with trail family members, or even just the bugs in the heat. Every day provided a new challenge and something new to overcome and to learn.
We just passed the blue blaze for Spy Rock. Normally I'm all about the blue blazes, but it's too foggy today. I don't think I'm gonna see shit.
In some ways, it was really frustrating to realize that there would be no easy days on trail, but in other ways, that was also really refreshing to just know that every day was going to throw something at us, and I just had to be strong enough to overcome it so that I could accomplish my goal of finishing this trail. One of the challenges that many thru hikers face with completing the trail is the Virginia Blues. Because Virginia is 500 miles long and the longest state on the AT, a lot of hikers feel like it never ends. But for me, the Virginia Blues never came. I think because it looks so much like home and we got to go through so many beautiful places and Shenandoah National Park, I loved almost every moment of Virginia.
Blackberry milkshakes from Big Meadows.
And the treats I got to enjoy while in Virginia didn't hurt either. Another part of the reason that I was given my trail name Treats is because I talked about treats hundreds of miles before we got to them sometimes. Like the blackberry milkshakes I had been telling my trail friends about since the beginning, and I always, when we were in town, would find a good treat spot to go enjoy. Because every day is absolutely better with a treat.
We are almost to 1,000 miles, almost to Harper's Ferry, almost halfway, and we are still trucking along. So we got this. Time to have a great ride. What are you gonna yell as you go up and down the hills, Barbie? Woo!
It was a roller coaster of emotions when we finally made it to the 1,000-mile mark. I was so grateful to be there, and yet I knew we still had so much to go.
Almost heaven, West Virginia. All right, we are in West Virginia.
As exciting as it was to reach the 1,000-mile mark, it was even more special to me to reach Harper's Ferry. 4 years prior, I had worked for the National Park Service and spent my weekends volunteering with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. I got to spend my time photographing and interacting with thru hikers and fangirling over their smelly selves. And now, to be one of those smelly thru hikers who walked here all the way from Georgia, well, I honestly couldn't dream of anything better.
I absolutely love being back at Harper's Ferry. It's been so much fun to explore the historical park again and all the little shops that line the main street.
But before leaving Harper's Ferry and heading back on the trail, we had one more little tiny side quest adventure to go on. Dirty thru hikers were heading into Washington, D.C. Barbie, Shooter, and a couple of our other friends had never been to Washington, D.C., and what better way to experience the capital than on a side quest adventure of a thru hike. We went and visited the Hirshhorn Art Museum, the Smithsonian, and just enjoyed a fun day in the city. It was honestly kind of weird being around so many people after being in the woods, but it was also really fun to share this experience with trail friends. While being on the trail was definitely hard work and I wouldn't consider it a vacation, there were some days that did feel like vacation.
There is a creamery in 15 miles that has ice cream and milkshakes and delicious milk. So that is what is motivating me today.
Some days it really did take treats to motivate me, and we did make it to that creamery in time, and it was 1,000% worth it. But yeah, sometimes you just need a treat to motivate your fastest times down the trail.
We made it to the Mason-Dixon line. 6 states down. Now just to conquer the rocks of Pennsylvania. It is day 3 of being drenched in rain. I actually don't really mind hiking in the rain, but after 3 days of like nothing being completely dry, including my socks, I'm done with the rain. So whoever's in control of the weather, could I request some sunshine, please? Just for a day to to dry out my stuff so that I don't feel like a wet, soggy human being. Also, I don't know if I just stomp more than other people, but this is what the rain does to my legs. It's only noon. We're halfway! Woo!
And then we had made it halfway into the iconic half-gallon challenge at Pine Grove Furnace.
Hello from hot and humid Pennsylvania, where I am straight up not having a good time.
Even though it had been really exciting to reach the official halfway point and the iconic Pine Grove Furnace and half-gallon challenge, which we did not participate in, Pennsylvania was the most challenging state for me thus far. Between the humidity and the rocks constantly stabbing my feet, I really was not enjoying myself, if I'm being honest. I was still happy to be out on trail, and there was no inkling in my mind about quitting. However, the constant stabbing of rocks on my feet really did test my mentality and desire to be out there. But despite that, there were still some good moments on the trail, like celebrating Barbie's birthday with sticks instead of candles, reaching the 1,200-mile mark, and truly becoming our best hiker trash selves by organizing our stuff on the side of a Walmart. As I reminisce back on the trail, I really did hate Pennsylvania, and it was my least favorite state of the entire trail. But I also realized looking back on these videos just how many moments I enjoyed too, like enjoying sandwiches that our friends had picked up from the local Wawa gas station, or the light show that random thru hikers had put on for us on 4th of July since we weren't going to be able to see the fireworks. It was all magical.
Well, this morning out started out hot and humid, but fine. And now we're in the bug net for the first time while hiking. Barbie wanted to steal it. But he also jinxed me because the bugs were just in my ears, and then they're in my face. So the bug net had to come on. I love summertime in Pennsylvania.
So now, not only was Pennsylvania challenging my feet with stabby rocks, but it was challenging my mental health by sending little annoying bugs into my ears and face. And then for a little while, I had a reprieve. I actually really loved this section of Pennsylvania and felt like it was something out west with its expansive views. But then, when I didn't think Pennsylvania could get worse, it got worse with the climb out of Lehigh Gap. I don't know what it was about this climb, the steepness, or how sweaty and slippery my legs were, but this moment was the first moment on trail that I actually questioned if I could finish this thing. Up until this point, even the toughest moments, I knew that I could push through, but the fear that I felt climbing up Lehigh Gap with my legs slipping off the rocks, it really made me question if I could do the tougher things that were coming.
You know, it's all part of the experience, but we're going to Delaware Water Gap. There is a bakery and some coffee shops, and I'm excited to feel a little bit like a normal person. It's been since Duncannon since I had showers, like a week and a half, because we had a few short days in there. So yeah, I'm excited to shower and eat some real food.
Even though Lehigh Gap had put some fear into me, there was nothing that a treat couldn't fix, and I reminded myself that I was out here to finish this thing.
Heck yeah! Leaving Pennsylvania!
As we crossed that state line into New Jersey, I did the happiest of happy dances to finally be out of Pennsylvania, and because on the trail we saw the cutest of red Fs that were dancing under a little mushroom. The red Fs were a sign of rain to come and rain that had passed, because as we were finishing out Pennsylvania, we got hit with a torrential rainstorm that had ended up flooding Vermont and causing hikers ahead of us to have to skip the state entirely. Lucky for us, the rain hadn't quite affected our trek through New Jersey, with the exception of the bugs, but the rains that were torrential would continue on for the rest of the trail and affect us later on. One unexpected thing that I really appreciated about the trail was that it gave me a better perspective on states that I had stereotypical views on, like New Jersey and New York. I assumed both of them were just these big cities. I mean, I knew that they were more than that, but I didn't realize just how beautiful their outdoor experience was.
Please enjoy this. We just had to do our first waist-deep river crossing, like probably a mile ago, maybe 2 miles ago. I don't know. That was fun. We're soggy. The bug net is on. I pulled it off so that my face could breathe a little bit, but the bugs are rampant. Mosquitoes are rampant. But New York, you're beautiful. But you do still have rocks. So if someone tells you that Pennsylvania, after Pennsylvania, the rocks are over, they're damn liars. Don't believe them. But it does get prettier. So I really was amazed by the outdoor beauty of New Jersey and New York, and I was once again reminded that everywhere has beauty to it if we're just willing to look for it. And reminding myself of this realization brought me back to one of my whys for hiking the Appalachian Trail, which was that I wanted a way to explore the East Coast of the United States. I had been to Harper's Ferry, I had been to DC, and I'd even been as far up north as New York, but I hadn't been any further than that. And the fact that I was getting to explore this part of the country by walking through it felt pretty darn special, because I really feel like although I was seeing more outdoor spots than the actual spots that people live, I was really getting to experience and enjoy these places in a slower manner than we usually get to. And because of that, I felt like I was able to appreciate them more. And when we went to New York City on yet another side quest, I also found that I appreciated big cities more after being on the trail. Don't get me wrong, I still found them stressful, and there were too many people, especially after being alone on the trail. But there is a certain beauty to big cities that you can't quite experience anywhere else. An awesome time in the city. It was definitely very different to being on trail. It's somewhat overwhelming when you have this foot of dirt to yourself every day, and then you get to the city and you're surrounded by people and like there's nowhere to walk. But we had a really good time. It was fun to take a break. We made it to Connecticut! Another state down! Once we hit the Mason-Dixon line, it really felt like the states started to fly by. In some ways, it was really cool that we were going faster and flying through the states, but in other ways, it just felt like time was moving too fast.
So, since our tent zipper won't work, we tried to see if we could get it fixed. It's not anything that'll be fast. We went to Ace Hardware, and we got some chip clips, and we have chip clipped the tent shut for a few days until we can get our new one in. So, yay. Especially because the mosquitoes are so rampant right now. But it'll be fine. It's part of thru hiking, right?
Good morning from the mosquito-y AT. It's going okay today. Not feeling so great. I woke up 2 days ago not feeling so good. Yesterday I felt better, and then today, not feeling so good. Again, just feeling worn. Maybe it's like a head cold. Really snotty. The mosquitoes in my ear don't help. But, you know, we're gonna hit 1,500 today. So it's always exciting. It makes it a good day when we're gonna hit a mile marker. And there's a fun little cafe in like 5 miles that we're gonna food blaze to, because Barbie and I are serial food blazers. And yeah, so it's gonna be a good day. It's gonna be probably a tiring day, and I probably won't feel good at the end of it. But it's gonna be a mostly good day, as long as the mosquitoes leave me somewhat alone. And I would walk 1,500 miles, and now we're gonna walk 700 more. And I went to bed feeling worse last night, and then I woke up, and if you can tell, I have another sinus infection. My second one on trail. Yay! Thought the one in the Smokies was the worst. Can confirm that the humidity and heat feel worse than the freezing rain. So yeah, we made it to Massachusetts. Another state down. I was hoping when we cross the state line there'd be no more mosquitoes. They're still here. Damn. It was in Connecticut where I battled my second sinus infection on trail. Again, I'm prone to them. But by this point, I had learned to go with the flow and that we would figure out a solution and it would all work out.
And that was one of my favorite things that the trail gave me, and that was to know that it would all work out. It may not work out the way that I planned or that I wanted, but in the end, it would all be okay. And honestly, although things like that still cause me anxiety when I have to change plans, and I do try to plan in advance, there is something really beautiful about living life in stressful moments and knowing that it's all going to work out. Massachusetts was another beautiful state that looked like something straight out of a Thoreau novel, and I loved that with every state that we got to walk through on this trail, we got to enjoy different forms of beauty, and they all never failed to take my breath away. Here, I'll mention just how special it was to me again when friends came to visit from off trail. And after a short visit reconnecting with a friend, it was time to enter Vermont, also known on the trail as Vermud. Vermont was one of my favorite states on trail, if not my favorite state. It was incredibly beautiful, and it was honestly so much fun to hike through. I think a part of the reason why I liked it was not only because in some ways it reminded me of the North Carolina mountains, but also because it had its own unique beauty that just made it so magical. Every day in Vermont was more beautiful than the last, and honestly, I don't think that I had a bad day in Vermont, which is saying something. Vermont had crystal clear blue lakes and stunning fire towers and pine trees that reached tall towards the sky and smelled like Christmas. And even the towns were lovely and adorable, and I couldn't get enough of them. One day in particular in Vermont that stands out to me as one of my favorite days ever on trail was the day that we hiked Stratton Mountain. The hike up Stratton was like something out of a fairy tale novel. It felt like I was in one of my favorite fantasy books. And then once we got to the top and climbed the fire tower and saw the spectacular view on a crystal clear day, I just couldn't believe how lucky I was to get to experience this kind of nature outdoor magic. And then even later on in the day when we got to Stratton Lake, or maybe it was a pond, but it felt like it was big enough to be a lake, and I got to swim in those beautiful clear waters of Vermont. Vermont is some kind of magic.
My first ever maple creamy. So good. Vermont. Why did I not know this existed? This is amazing.
And the magic of Vermont just continued throughout the whole state. I got to enjoy my first maple creamy, which is one of my favorite treats of the entire Appalachian Trail, and that's saying a lot because I ate a lot of treats. But then we also got to experience the magic of staying on top of a ski mountain, which, as somebody who loves to ski and who usually sees ski mountains in the winter with snow all over them, it's always such a unique experience to see them with green grass, and it's even more of a special time to get to say that you camped on top of a ski mountain. Vermont wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. As we headed down Bromley Mountain, a storm hit that poured and pelted rain and shook the ground with thunder and lightning. It was one of the scariest storms that we had experienced while walking on the trail.
Only about 500 miles left. This is a very exciting and very sad sign.
Like the mile markers before me, it was hard to fathom that we only had 500 miles left of this amazing adventure. It felt like 1,700 miles had flown by, and if I was being honest, 500 miles left felt like it would go by too quickly, and I wasn't quite ready for this adventure to end. I didn't really have to start thinking about the end though, because right now it was time to enjoy the trail with two of my best friends who had come out for the week to hike 50 miles of Vermont with us. It was incredibly special to experience miles on the trail with my friends. They had known that I wanted to thru hike for years, and so getting to share the magic of a few miles on trail with them was something that I'll always be incredibly grateful for. However, I will admit it was harder having them on trail than I thought, and that was all on me because I had forgotten what it meant to be a beginner thru hiker and how my legs felt in the beginning and how mentally and physically how in some ways how exhausting the trail was. And so while I loved every moment that I had them out there, I would do it a little bit differently in the future just so that we could all enjoy it a little bit more. But it was awesome to cross into the New Hampshire state line with them.
Headed towards the whites. I am terrified. I think because of all the fear mongering that goes with the whites, but I'm also, super, there's sweat dripping down my face. I'm super excited because I think that the terrain in the whites will be like unlike anything I've ever seen. So I'm super excited to hike them, and we will hit Moosilauke. Well, depending on how we even out the miles, we'll hit Moosilauke either tomorrow or Wednesday. So yeah, we are getting closer to being done with this thing, which is wild and crazy, and you know, we're just taking in every day, the good and the bad. So after saying goodbye to my friends in Hanover, New Hampshire, we were headed towards the White Mountains. As I look back and watch my prior self talk about the White Mountains and how scared but excited I was, I am thrilled for the optimism that I had, because now that I've finished the trail, I can say that New Hampshire was my second to last favorite state of the trail, behind Pennsylvania, because it had better views. And it wasn't because New Hampshire wasn't beautiful, because gosh darn, New Hampshire was absolutely spectacular. But the mental and physical toll that traversing through this state had on me really had an effect on my hike. After making it so far, I knew I didn't want to quit in New Hampshire, but I admit that I spent more days wanting to quit in New Hampshire than I spent days wanting to be on trail, and that was really hard.
Made it to 1800! Less than 400 miles to go!
And now we officially start the whites and we start climbing up Moosilauke.
I enjoyed the start of the White Mountains. I thought the climb up Moosilauke was fine. It was challenging, yes, but it was the type of challenging that once you completed it, you felt really accomplished. And so once we got to the top of Moosilauke, even though it was covered in fog and wind and rain, I was feeling really proud of myself and like I could kick these 4Ks ass. I knew it was going to be tough, but at that point I was like, I can do this. I can make it through the whites.
We made it! This weather is bullshit! It was supposed to be nicer today, but we made it. And now we're getting the fuck off this mountain and down under tree line.
But the descent down Moosilauke was something I'll never forget. That 4-mile descent down what seemed like a waterfall took us 4 hours, and I cried most of it. The descent felt scary and unsafe, and there were a lot of times where I feared for whether or not I would make it down. The next few days in the whites were just as tough, and at one point we ended up taking an unexpected zero so that I could get my mental health in check. But taking that unexpected zero meant that I got to see the Franconia Ridgeline in all of its glory. This ridgeline was something that I had been dreaming about seeing since I first started this dream of through hiking the Appalachian Trail. And so after a few horrible days in the whites, getting to experience this iconic spot on a beautiful, clear day was exactly what I needed to push myself to keep going. Although that mental health day and the zero was much needed, it did mean that we lost our friends that we had just caught up with, and that really sucked.
AMC, what the hell is this? This is a waterfall, not a trail. What the fuck? Such beautiful views here in the White Mountains. That's the view, because this is what else we got. Yay, yeah, South Twin!
After just catching back up to our friends, it was hard to lose them again, and I didn't know it at the time, but we wouldn't see them for the entire rest of the trail. Sometimes I think back on that day, and I wonder what would have happened if I had pushed myself to hike through the rain and the fog up Franconia Ridge. Would we have stayed with our friends? Would the end of our hike been different? And although I do wish that we had gotten to spend a little bit more time with our friends on the trail, I don't think that I would have changed it, because getting to enjoy Franconia in that way was so special and so important to me. And especially, this was the first time I had been talking with my mom when we were going through the whites, and she said that she could hear it in my voice, that I was not doing well. and that I was close to quitting. And so although I hate that we missed some experiences with our friends, I would have hated even more if I didn't finish the trail. I am very much someone who overdoes it and pushes himself too hard, and so it was extremely difficult for me to make the choice to take a 0 day. I was so disappointed with myself. But now looking back, I'm really proud that I was strong enough to say, I need a day. I need to get my mental health in check. Because although your physical health is important out here, I think your mental health is even more important. Because if your head is not in the right space when you're out here, you're not going to finish and you're not going to have a good time.
Made it to the top of the last wildcat. And yes, that is dirt on my face. It's a new makeup regiment. Specifically from the whites.
Your nose, your chin.
After getting absolutely beautiful weather while crossing Franconia Ridge, and again being graced with a sunshiny day as we crossed the Presidential Traverse, I was trying to have a positive outlook as we finished the White Mountains. And before I knew it, we were through. And I was on my way to Maine, to the last state of the trail.
Made it to Maine! Last state! Not gonna miss New Hampshire. Hoping Maine is better. But I'm not sure about that. Because this is how we're looking. So.
My response to crossing into Maine was to burst into tears, and they weren't necessarily happy tears. They were just all of the buildup of coming so far and the frustration of New Hampshire and knowing that we still had some tough miles ahead of us. I knew I could do it, but in that moment, I just broke down.
All right, getting back on. Heading north at Grafton Notch. Sun is shining. Barbie's doing whatever that is.
I had hoped that coming into Maine, I would leave behind all the mental and physical insecurities that I had had in New Hampshire, but the first 30 miles of Maine were really tough, and honestly, I will say this for the entirety of the trail, but especially New Hampshire and Maine, I am so grateful to have someone that kept me giggling and laughing all the time. Barbie stuck with me on even the worst of days when sometimes I didn't even want to stick with myself. Even in the last state of the trail, I was reminded that no day out here is easy. There were a lot of beautiful days, but a lot of them were pretty hard. And I think what makes Maine even harder is the emotional toll, because you're so close to the end of your goal that you've been working so hard for many, many months. And at the same time that you want to finish, you also want time to just slow down because you never want this magical, amazing adventure to end. I think the general public, and especially thru hikers themselves, we all think that we're going to have some grand epiphany about life while we're out here. And that doesn't really happen. I think usually it's more all these little mini epiphanies about life and the way we want to live it going forward. And there's something so beautiful about that.
2,000 miles! We did it. Now, we've got less than 200 more. 198.4, but we walked 2,000 miles. What the heck? $2,000 miles. Time to finish this bad boy.
The 2,000-mile marker felt really significant for me after all the recent struggles I'd had. I was just so incredibly proud of myself for making it here and knowing that I had so little to go to Katahdin.
Last 4K until Katahdin today. Excited and hoping that the terrain is a little bit friendlier, but it's mixed feelings. Definitely mixed feelings. Excited to be at this point. Sad that it's almost over. But yeah, excited to hike up the Bigelows.
It was all starting to feel a bit bittersweet. I wanted this trail to end. I wanted to finish, but I also never wanted it to end. And it's really fascinating to me how in the beginning I cherished every single moment, every rainstorm, every shelter I got to stay in, every laugh with friends, every new treat. And then as the trail went on and I sped up, I didn't savor those moments as much, like watching the sunrise or just sitting in my tent listening to the birds chirp. And what happens is then when you get to the end and you're just trying to drag it out, you start to savor, and I started to savor those moments again. And I think that that's an important lesson to remember, to just savor the moments all the time. Not at the beginning and the end, but all the time.
We didn't really plan to come down this blue blaze, to Old Man said, but Barbie was leading. It is beautiful. This is what happens when I let this lead.
And to not just savor the moments, but also the people that you're with too. I talked about earlier how this trail brought my faith back in humanity. And one of my only regrets of the trail is that I didn't get enough video or photos of my favorite people that I met along the way. Because although the time in nature was beautiful and the trail itself was amazing, it's the time and the realness that I got to experience with other people that ended up meaning the most.
We took some time in town today to do a mini resupply in Caratunk. And the ferry took some time, and we had breakfast at Harrison's Pierce Pond, and it was awesome. So we felt like we should have been pushing some bigger miles, but instead we are taking a little break and swimming in the lake. Actually, I think it's a pond, but we're swimming in the pond, and it's a beautiful day.
Taking it day by day and savoring these moments again is one of the key things I think it takes to make it to Katahdin. Because if you think about it in a big picture way, it seems daunting and impossible. But if you think about it in bite-sized pieces, like day by day or week by week, then the trail will feel like it's gone by so fast that you want time to stop.
We are on day 4 of being in the 100-mile wilderness. The first 3 days, it rained pretty much the entire time. Today, it's supposed to be clear, but jury's still out on that. Yesterday we pushed 21, almost 22 mile day after a shorter day the day before because it was so rainy and cold. But we pushed a big day so that we would actually make our food drop from Shaw's on time. And then this morning we got up and point 2 past the East Branch lean-to is the East Branch of the Pleasant River. And because of the torrential rain we had the night before, the river, it was not crossable. Like, there was no way it was going to be safe. Barbie started to try and cross it, and it just wasn't. We even tried to go upstream. We looked downstream, and the water just looked too rough. And so we are currently on a high water reroute that is a 17-mile blue blaze, which is crazy because we only we go around 6 miles of the trail, but yeah, 17 miles around. So we are currently doing that, hoping that on one of these logging roads we'll see some kind of car to pick us up. We don't know what to do right now. We're almost out of food because again today we're supposed to do our food drop with this reroute. We're not going to make that food drop. So right now the options are to hopefully catch the reroute or the drop, the truck that does the drops once this road connects with that road, or to, instead of walking this entire reroute to get back on trail, walking to the main road and getting a hitch back to town, because we've had really bad weather the last 3 days. I can't even describe the rain last night, and we're supposed to have even worse weather coming. It's like the first hurricane in a long time to hit Maine, or to be even trajected towards Maine. So we really don't know what later in the week's gonna bring. And we're about to be out of roads completely, and so out of bailout points. And so we are considering getting off for a few days and coming back and picking up after the storm passes, because at this point it's all about, I'm not dying over this trail.
In what I thought was my last week on trail, the trail continued to challenge and push me in its own way. And you know how they say that the trail provides? Well, I think that the trail was trying to provide for me. I think the trail wanted me to finish it the way that I had started it. Absolutely loving this trail. And so, after a few days off to escape the wrath of the potential hurricane, we were back on trail to finish out this amazing trail. As much as the last few states on trail had really mentally and emotionally taken their toll on me, I knew I was going to miss it when the end was here. And so I got emotional as we started to get closer and closer to Baxter State Park and to Katahdin. Something I read written in Sharpie in one of the privies in Maine said something like this: "Is this the ending for you, or is it simply a beginning?" And I think that this was such a powerful thing to read as we were somewhat ending our adventure on the Appalachian Trail. Because, yes, we were ending this amazing journey, but also I had to think of it that so many wonderful things had come from this trail and were going to continue to come from getting to experience everything that had come to me through walking 2,198.4 miles. The Appalachian Trail is an adventure of a lifetime. It gave me back my faith in humanity. It showed me the strength that I knew that I had, but needed a push to find. And it gave me the opportunity to see the country like nothing else ever will.
This is the trail today. I'm perched on a rock. That thing that looks like a waterfall? That's the trail. Same with this river.
Even with the rain and continuously soggy shoes, again, the end is drawing near and I'm pushing away with all my might because I really, truly don't want this trail to end. I think I'm afraid of who I'll be without it.
It might be the end, but I'm trying to also think of it as a new beginning.
Because out here on the Appalachian Trail, I became the best version of myself, and I'm worried that I won't be able to bring her back into the real world. I was terrified to start this journey, and I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't terrified to end it, and what that end will bring.
It's our second to last day on trail. Oh, it's so exciting. And, I mean, it's sad. It's sad this adventure's ending. But the sun is supposed to shine today. We got some semi views of Katahdin. And we're going to be finishing with friends. So, yeah. Tomorrow's the last day. We're going to enjoy this 10 miles into Katahdin Stream.
I have heard that thru hiking is like your first love, and also that it will break your heart. And I can inevitably say that it will, but it will break you and fix you in the best way possible.
It's summit day! Last day on the AT. Slept like garbage. But slept like garbage, but you know what? It's the nerves and the excitement. So, time to summit today and finish this adventure.
You can't hide from any part of yourself out here on the trail, and that's one of the most beautiful things ever, because you really learn to love yourself and appreciate everything that you can do and everything that you are. I finished the Appalachian Trail over a year ago now, and there still are and were no words, but also so many and not enough. The Appalachian Trail broke me, it fixed me, it filled me in my soul, and I will never be the same. And yet I'm also still the girl who just wanted to follow the white blazes. I gave and left my literal blood, sweat, and tears along the Appalachian Trail. It was worth it, and I'd do it all again just to live this life again and be with these people and these mountains. I climbed that goddamn mountain and then some. 2,198.4 miles, 14 states, 192 days, Georgia to Maine. I am officially an Appalachian Trail thru hiker. A dream 6 years in the making that I thought I'd never reach, but at the same time I knew I always would. because I wasn't leaving this trail until I touched that Katahdin sign. "2,000 miles and a lot of tears later, we fucking made it." Through hiking the Appalachian Trail is an adventure that has forever changed me, and I will never ever be the same. And the aftermath of a thru hike is that thru hiking gets under your skin. Until the next one, treats. I did it. I hiked the AT. Ugh.